Welcome to Sidewalk Talk. I am Maria Batt, Director of Client Relations and Design for Shovel the Sidewalk. We're a marketing firm in Buffalo, New York, specializing in building brands for small businesses and then pushing their message out through authentic storytelling. And there's no better time for storytelling than when we're all stuck inside. So today I have Ed Drantch from Channel 7. Welcome, Ed. Thanks for taking time out of your day.
Hi, Maria. Thanks for having us.
So Ed and I go back a little bit. I got to see Ed grow into a, Samba?
Yeah.
Samba expert for a ballroom dancing event when I was in my nonprofit life, and he won.
Yeah, I was like Dancing with the Stars champ. It was awesome.
Yeah, I remember one of your rehearsals, you ripped your pants.
And you could hear the split in my pants. It was audible. It was ridiculous.
You still dancing?
No, I got rid of my dancing shoes, but trading them for breaking news blues, I guess.
Breaking news blues. So how is this changing your job right now?
Gosh, this is insane. I think both in the way it's unfolding and the way we're having to strategize to cover it, frankly. I'll start with my first point. The way this is unfolding, I mean, we've been covering Governor Cuomo holding press conferences now for more than a week, and he took a much different tone today than he did in days past. And I thought that was surprising. He was much more firm in what he had to say, much more pointed in his, he wasn't really attacking the federal government, but his calls for federal government help. And he was critical of the president and his efforts with FEMA. New York State, he says, will need 30,000 ventilators, and FEMA was offering 400. And, on one hand, he's grateful for the help from the federal government. On the other hand, he's calling on the federal government to step up and send more help and, use a Wartime Powers Act, essentially, to help produce more product, to bring us to a conclusion here where few people die. And he says, we need ventilators, we need ventilators, we need ventilators. And we're about 14 or 21 days away from the climax of all of this crashing on the healthcare system. So that's his really big focus at this point, and that's his big concern. And it was a much more urgent and pointed tone today than it has been in days past. When I talked about the insanity of covering this now, okay, so I come in at 3:00 in the morning every single day. When Katie's not here, she normally comes in at 3:00, but we're switching back and forth because of social distancing rules. So she's off today, I'm here at work. And, we'll flip-flop days. But I think this is the longest I've sat at my desk since 4:00 this morning, and it's 1:00 in the afternoon. Governor Cuomo talks, he talks for an hour. We have to intro it, we're recapping it. I anchored the news at noon today. We're constantly recording new updates. I was on AM Buffalo this morning, and I'm in editorial meetings. There are so many things happening. I'm talking to people via FaceTime and Zoom, trying to develop new stories and then turning that for tomorrow. So there's just a constant wheel that needs to turn, and it's a story that needs to be told, but it's, making sure that we're telling it with context and making sure that we're not necessarily creating fear or panic, and doing it in a clear, concise, and cohesive manner.
There's so much misinformation out there, and people are getting their news, unfortunately, from Facebook and from Twitter, which is so reliable, of course, so now, journalism is always important, right? We have to have it. We have to keep people honest. We have to know what's going on, but now more than ever, how should people sift through? Where do you get your news from? When you're looking for a reliable source, where do you go?
Yeah, we're turning to facts. This is the bottom line. We're taking numbers from Erie County. We're taking numbers from Niagara County. We're taking numbers from Governor Cuomo. And each of these agencies, the Erie County Department of Health, Niagara, Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, all of these county health departments are putting out numbers based on the amount of people that they've tested. So, we're aggregating all of this data and making sure that it's put out to our viewers. And I've seen things on Facebook that are just bizarre to me. Like, people are coming to me, and I'm grateful that they're coming to me asking questions, because it's our job to almost dispel those myths and, allay fears and put rumors to bed based on what we have in fact. So, there's a text message going around that is, alarming in its tone, because it says, oh my gosh, the coronavirus is spreading on gas pumps. Tell everyone use a paper towel and gloves to pump gas. Well, like, that's a no-brainer, right? I mean, like,
Right.
I always pump gas and use sanitizer after that, but like, what are you doing?
Right.
So there are
Licking
things
my
like that,
hands
like
when I'm done.
exactly like that. I mean, people just need to really kind of contextualize what's going on here and say, okay, this is something that's scary for sure. We're going to get through it, but it's a matter of not, you know, transmitting that panic and that fear in the way we communicate with people. And I think that's really the underlying message here.
Yeah, it's been the reaction more. I
Right.
understand everything that the CDC and Cuomo's putting out there and why we're staying home and the social distancing. I get it. I think it's that public panic and this is a hoax. It's not a hoax. And when we're all they're lying to us, and that's what's creating the panic.
Right. And, we've heard from our elected leaders and, public health leaders that we should not be panic buying. People, the news, the media never said, go buy toilet paper.
Right.
The news media never said, go buy all the hand sanitizer and hoard it. That's not our job. We are telling you that you need to use these things like hand sanitizer and antibacterial soap, telling you that you need to wash your hands for 20 seconds, but we're not telling you to go panic buy. And, we need to make sure that there are goods out there for the people who do need them. There's a vulnerable population, people with underlying health conditions, the elderly. I mean, these people are going to, hopefully not get sick, but the reality is that a lot of them will get sick if we don't adhere to these rules and these social norms that are in place right now to stop the spread of the virus.
Yeah, a 32-year-old Ironman competitor does not need to be wearing a face mask when he's going to Wegmans to get his stuff.
Right. And you know what? I saw a guy in Wegmans the other day when I was shopping wearing one of those, face masks that are so highly coveted. And he was wearing it improperly. He wasn't wearing it over his nose, just only wearing it over his mouth. And it took every ounce of self-control for me to not say something to him, because our doctors and our nurses are in such dire need. And these are the people on the front lines of fighting this.
Not to mention that person probably went home, took the mask off, put it down in his kitchen, and then is going to wear it again. So, I mean,
Right.
it's really kind of counterproductive what's going on with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're hearing that, there isn't enough supply, period. So somebody is buying and, standing in the way potentially of a system that is broken, really, in that we can't get this to the people who actually need them.
You said before we started podcast that you're going to be broadcasting from home tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's
isn't
fun.
that crazy? I'm excited about it. I'm really looking forward to it because, it's kind of like a different adventure for me personally as a journalist. At the same time, there are technical obstacles that we have to jump over to make sure that, everything goes off without a hitch. And, I'm still waking up at the same time. I'm still going over scripts and still making sure that all the information is accurate and, portrayed in a way that's easy to understand. But I'm doing it from my kitchen instead of doing it from the comfort of a climate-controlled studio under the bright lights.
Right. Do you have anything fun ready?
Actually, you know what? I interviewed a woman today who is super cool. She's a photographer. And she's going around to all these different places and kind of showcasing what life is like in quarantine or, in close quarters. And it was interesting to me because it is kind of like a social narrative. People, the way these pictures are shot, they're taken through windows or through glass front doors or people standing on their porches, and the photographer is like 6 feet away. So it's not as intimate as it might be, when, as a photographer, you're standing up close with your subject, but it kind of, spoke to me in a way that, 5 years from now, we'll look back on this and say, wow, can you believe we got through this? And can you believe we did it together and how we've persevered? And that, I think, is the coolest part.
You have a different perspective because you grew up in Long Island, right? And then you worked, where were you, in Virginia?
Yeah, I worked in New York City for a year and then moved to get my first on-air job in Virginia. And I've been in Buffalo now almost 10 years.
So you've seen a couple of different communities. And my dad was a professional firefighter. My husband is now, so I'm never leaving. I'm stuck here for at least another 15 years. But we're the city of good neighbor, right? And I do think that this is bringing the best out in a lot of us. There's people outside walking their dogs and we're smiling at each other and making eye contact unlike we have before. How do you think the Buffalo community is at maybe a better advantage to deal with this with our kind of brotherhood that we have here?
We're slowing down, and I think we're connecting with people more than we ordinarily would. We say we're the city of good neighbors, but it's what we do that really makes it the city of good neighbors. It's stepping up and helping your small businesses. It's hiring somebody who may have been laid off. It's these businesses that are giving their workers $2 an hour wage hikes because they're dealing with these uncertain terms. And I heard a story recently about, a family who just is so down. They have no money and they just needed food. And it broke my heart to think that this family could go without, but that people are stepping up to help them. And that's really the embodiment, the personification of the city of good neighbors.
What's your advice to these people that are shut in and they're in quarantine, and what can help brighten their day a little bit? What do you do when you're stuck in?
You know what? It's about finding maybe a silver lining. We're going to get through this. Like this is just temporary. Everything is just temporary right now. And, there are people waiting on the other end for you at work, at school, in the community, at a gym that you go to. I mean, like there's a community out there that everyone is longing to be a part of. So it's not just you. I think the idea here is that if you do need help, seek it. You're not alone, and it's okay to feel like that. But things will get better, and we'll get through this, and we're going to do it together.
It wasn't too long ago that Buffalo looked very different. There weren't as many restaurants open. There was no canal side, and now we're in the throes of this beautiful renaissance. How do you think this is going to affect that? What are we going to look like when we come out on the other side?
That's a really good question. And I think in certain cases, it's frightening because, when you have so many of these small businesses popping up everywhere, new restaurants, new clothing shops, even small bars, it's kind of like they're taking a chance on the community. But when something like this happens, it could shutter their businesses for good. I'm friends with a gym owner who is thinking out of the box now, doing Instagram classes and making sure that, people are able to still take their classes, but doing it in a different venue. Everyone's home, so why not do that from home? I'm friends with a restaurant owner who had to lay off all of his staff and isn't sure when or if they'll reopen. I'm also friends with the owner of a winery that's having to think outside the box now, and they also had to lay off a lot of their staff, but they're still producing, they're focusing on wholesale accounts, and they're selling by the bottle, hoping that that's really what pulls them through. And, I think when you're a business owner and you can think outside the box and you can really be innovative in times like this, you're able to kind of pull through to the other side. And, hopefully a lot of these small businesses will.
I spoke with Chef Mike Andrzejewski yesterday,
Yeah.
and he was talking about his vest and how he has these margarita kits now. And like his vision right now is for people, instead of, ringing somebody's doorbell and just like running away, ringing your neighbor's doorbell and leaving like a margarita kit and then just like hightailing it out of there just to give them something to smile about. What's something unique that you have seen that people, whether it's a business or a neighbor or somebody like that, has done to kind of add a little bit of light to the situation?
I've seen people go around playing instruments. I just today, we're getting a lot of viewers sending in a lot of, pictures and video to us, kind of showcasing what's happening around the best. And these two girls from Alden Central Schools went to their grandparents' house to play music for them. And these are musical instruments that, they're learning about and trying to play with their orchestra in school. So they're not only are they practicing, but they're also kind of performing for their grandparents and putting a smile on their faces. I'm seeing, moms and dads think of new ways to kind of help their kids learn and, pull through and kind of help them understand. And I think that's probably the most unique thing that I've seen is, parents becoming a different kind of teacher and a role that they might not have been ready for, but are kind of thrown into, and how they're handling these situations.
What do you think we could be doing better?
Huh.
It's a tough question.
You know what? I know. I don't know. And, you know, the one thing that I can think of is, you know, these small businesses, what do they do? You know, the Small Business Administration has low interest loans that are available to businesses going through tough times. And, you know, the federal government is talking about a $2 trillion stimulus package. And, you know, the president's mentioned sending out checks of $1,000 to people who need them. But, you know, I think about the landlords and people who are renting, and how do they put food on the table, pay their rent, and then how does the landlord move forward? I mean, there are, I think, a lot of what ifs, and I don't know that all of these what ifs have answers right now. And I think that's kind of the most concerning for people, is the fear of the unknown. And I don't know that I have an answer for that.
Mhm. So before we end, I wanted to do something kind of fun and do some like rapid fire questions
Yeah,
to
let's do it.
you. Yeah, I love Vogue, and Vogue has this these like spots where they'll go into somebody's house and you have like, I don't know, 50 questions or something like that, and they just never stop asking them. So this will be, I'm so Vogue, so this will obviously be a thing. So, do you and Katie plan your outfits every day? Because you
Every
guys tend
day.
to match. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She texts me at 3 o'clock in the morning on her way to work and says, blue, gold, or I'm wearing tan and black, or red and black. You know, I know Katie's wardrobe better than I know my own at this point.
What's one person that you would love to interview, dead, alive, unattainable, doesn't matter?
Lady Gaga, 100% hands down.
Right? Yeah. Who would you lose your composure over and not be professional if you got to interview them or even meet them?
Oh, gosh. I lose my composure. I definitely got a little giddy around Nick Wallenda just because I thought he was so cool. But I don't know that I've ever lost my composure around somebody. I get nervous asking questions of like really powerful people, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I have to think about that one.
Okay. What's your favorite place to travel?
I was just in Europe. Italy, Venice was my favorite.
Oh, thank God you got there right now.
I know. Can you imagine? We got there just in the nick of time too. It was the floods, now the coronavirus, just crazy.
Unfortunately, the last part of my interview with Ed didn't quite download properly, probably because there are thousands of people using Zoom that never had used it before, and perhaps the bandwidth just couldn't support one extra meeting or one extra interview. But I want to thank him so much for taking the time to come on Sidewalk Talk and share what's going on journalistically throughout all of this coronavirus craziness. If you have a story that's just as interesting as Ed's, or if you have somebody that you think would be great on our podcast, we'd love it if you could reach out to us. Hop on our website, shovelthesidewalk.com, and visit the Sidewalk Talk podcast page, and we have a form right on there. Fill it out. We'll get back to you. There's also the rest of our podcasts that you can listen to. You can also stream them from wherever it is that you get your podcasts, Spotify or Pandora, whatever that is. So thank you again so much to Ed and Channel 7 for sparing him for a little bit for us so we could have a chat. And this has been Sidewalk Talk.